All rise.
Please be seated. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Just to let you know, you'll note that juror number 8 is not with us today. Due to a family emergency, juror number 8 has been excused. So this is why we have alternates. But juror number 8 has been excused due to a significant family emergency. So we will proceed now with one alternate. All right. State ready to proceed?
Yes, Your Honor. The state called Alexandra Eckersley. Please remain seated. Your Honor, would you swear the witness?
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that any testimony or statements you give will be the truth, nothing but the truth under the pains and penalties of perjury?
I do.
Please be seated.
Good morning, Ms. Gosselin. Could you please state your full name for the record?
Alexandria Catherine Gosselin.
All right, ma'am, I'm just going to ask you to keep your voice up. It's a big room and everybody needs to hear you. Okay?
Sorry.
It's all right.
And what was that first name again?
Alexandria Catherine Gosselin.
Okay. And can you spell your last name for the record, please?
Gosselin.
Thank you. Ms. Gosselin, where were you working on 12/26 of 2022?
At Catholic Medical Center.
What was your role then?
Emergency department registered nurse.
But what kind of education and training does it take to become an emergency department registered nurse?
I have an associate's degree in nursing as well as a bachelor's degree in nursing.
And what kind of work experience had you had up to that point?
As a new graduate, when I first started my nursing career, I worked on the IV team up at Dartmouth Hitchcock in Lebanon for 2.5 years.
Did you say IV team?
Yes.
What is that?
It is a team of nurses that go around the hospital and the clinics placing IV catheters or intravenous catheters into patients that need different medications infused.
And how long did you say you were there?
2.5 years, I believe.
Okay. And what came next?
And then I came to Catholic Medical Center in the emergency department.
So by December of 2022, how long had you been at Catholic Medical Center?
2 years, a little over 2 years.
Were you working at CMC at 1:45 a.m. on December 26th of 2022?
I was.
And you were working in the emergency department?
That is correct.
Okay. Do you remember a baby being brought in for emergency care at that time?
I do.
Or just one that night?
I'm not sure.
Do you remember any others?
No.
Okay. Do you remember what the baby's weight was when he was admitted?
I do not recall.
Okay. Would it help refresh your recollection if you saw your notes?
I believe it would, yes.
I'm handing you what's been.
Can I see that?
For the different body temperatures. Change. Mm-hmm. I'm handing you what's been marked as State Exhibit 23 for ID.
Thank
Do
you.
you recognize that?
I do.
What is that?
This is part of the medical record
Okay.
and documentation.
Are those your notes?
That is correct.
And when are those notes from?
From December 26, 2022, during patient's admission.
Okay. And is that the baby that was brought in that evening?
That is correct.
I guess. Okay, can you take a look at those notes and refresh your recollection as to what the baby's weight was when he was admitted? I'm just going to point you to the page 15.
$2 kilograms.
Can you tell us what that is in pounds or ounces? Because I can't do the conversion.
4 pounds.
4 pounds is how many ounces?
6 ounces.
4 pounds, 6 ounces? Okay. And do you recall what the baby's condition was when he came in?
The baby was non-responsive when he came in, and CPR was being performed by the first responder.
Okay. And how do you categorize that in the emergency department? What do you call that condition?
He was in a code blue.
Okay.
So he was receiving CPR.
Okay. Could you describe his appearance?
His arms and legs were flaccid, and he was bloody and covered in dirt. And when they walked in, the first responder had him in her hand and was performing one-handed compressions while walking into the trauma bay.
Okay, can you tell me what his color was?
Dark reddish color.
Okay, what does that tell you, if anything?
That he's not circulating his blood very well, very cold in appearance as well.
Your Honor, I'm sorry, I can't hear.
Yeah, if you could just keep your voice, please.
Sorry.
Thank you. That's okay.
What did you notice about his eyes?
His eyes were not open the first time I saw him.
Did his eyes open while you were with him?
His eyes opened later on, right before he was transferred.
Was that the same morning?
It was hours later.
When you first saw him, was there any movement?
No.
What were you treating the baby for when he first arrived?
We were treating him for hypothermia.
Okay. And what was that treatment?
We were warming him with hot packs, and we put him in infant warmer that creates radiant heat to bring his core temperature up.
Did you record his core temperature?
I did. Well, I recorded his temperature.
Oh, I'm sorry. How's that different?
Core temperature is inside the body. With infant as young as he is, it's not safe to take an internal temperature like we would on a normal sized infant. We would take a rectal temperature, but where he was prematurely born, rectal temperature would not be safe due to the risk of perforation. So when babies are this small and this young, we take a skin temperature.
Okay. Does the skin temperature normally correlate to the internal temperature in your experience?
Your Honor, Judge, that foundation, she did an original foundation for this question.
Sustained.
Over the course of your, it sounds like 4.5 years of being an RN, do you normally take both internal and skin temperatures?
Skin temperatures are only for premature infants that are in a warmer.
Okay. So there's no other circumstance where you would just take a skin temperature from someone?
There are the abilities to do like the thermometers over the forehead, but
Is that a skin temperature?
that would be a skin temperature, yes.
Okay. And does that ordinarily correlate to internal temperatures that you
Objection.
use some other method for?
Same objection.
Approach. The injection sustained.
Okay, so you've taken skin temperatures from patients, right?
Okay, I'm sorry, you have to
Yes.
verbal answer. Thank you.
And you've taken internal temperatures from patients, right?
Yes.
Have you had patients where you took both a skin temperature and an internal temperature?
Yes.
In that instance, or in those instances, when you took both the skin temperature and an internal temperature from the same patient,
Objection, relevance.
Overruled.
in those instances, did the skin temperatures correlate to the internal temperatures?
The internal temperatures is generally a few degrees warmer.
Thank you. And when you say a few degrees, what do you mean?
It can vary, but in my experience, it's usually a 3 to 4 degree difference or so.
Okay. So the skin temperature in your experience is typically 3 to 4 degrees warmer than the internal temperature, or vice versa?
Vice versa.
Oh, okay. So the internal temperature in your experience is typically 3 to 4 degrees warmer than the skin temperature.
That is correct.
Okay. And on this particular baby, on December 26th of 2022, you were taking a skin temperature.
That is correct.
So we would expect that skin temperature reading to be 3 to 4 degrees cooler than the baby's internal temperature.
Correct.
Can you tell me what time did the baby's first body temperature get recorded?
Your Honor, if it's going to refresh her recollection, she's just looking at her report now by herself.
I'm
I
sorry.
think.
So yeah,
Okay,
so
yes.
Am I allowed?
you can refer to your report, but only to refresh your recollection. So if you're going to do that, just let me know that you don't remember.
I'd like to know what part of the report she's referring to refresh her recollection.
I'm going to look in the code blue flow sheets because that is where it would be documented.
So you should
I
be
can
looking at
page.
page 20.
Can you crunch for a second?
Yes.
I'm sorry. Did you refresh your recollection?
I did.
So what was the first time that you recorded a body temperature?
At 2:20, the first recorded temperature was 82.7 degrees Fahrenheit.
And do you know what time the baby came into the hospital?
I do.
What time was that?
1:45 in the morning.
Okay, and so from the moment that the baby came in until the moment you first recorded that body temperature, were you present for that?
I was.
And what were you doing?
There was a lot going on. We got the baby in the warmer. CPR was being performed. It takes some time for the machine to register a temperature. So this was the first temperature that the machine was able to register.
Okay, so for that 35 minutes, you had the baby in a warmer.
That is correct.
Were you doing anything else besides that to increase the baby's body temperature during that first 35 minutes?
Yes, the baby had hot packs underneath him and on the sides. The warmer had the light right on top of him, warming him, and the room temperature was increased as well.
Okay. Do you know how low a baby's body temperature can go?
I don't.
I'm going to object to foundation on this. So
Overruled, but
Okay, what was the next time that you recorded a patient temperature?
I'll have to refer to my records.
Okay, if you could look at page 18, which is Bates 199. I'm sorry, I'm going to withdraw that question. At 3:50 a.m., there's a note in your report that says, we did 3 rounds of epi and PPV at 28 of pressure on 100%. Do you see that note?
I do.
What does that mean?
That was not recorded by me.
Okay, what does that mean, if you know?
So this is a note from a respiratory therapist, and she was documenting the positive pressure ventilation of the vent that was breathing for the baby at that time.
Okay, and is that a tube?
Yes,
Does that mean that the baby was intubated at that time?
that is correct.
Okay. Can you tell me at 2:25 a.m. what the baby's temperature was?
I will have to reference my record.
Could you refer to page 13, Bates 194?
At 2:47, the patient's temperature was 88.7 degrees Fahrenheit.
Is that hypothermic?
Yes,
Okay. And at that point, the baby had been in the hospital with the warming for over an hour?
that is correct.
Still the heat packs on him?
Yes.
And in the warmer?
Yes.
Okay. It looks like the last body temp was about 2 minutes before 4 o'clock. Is that correct?
If I can reference my notes again.
Please, on page 10, number 191 Bates.
And you were asking at 4:24 a.m., is that correct?
Do you have, yes.
At 4:24 a.m., the patient's temperature was 93.2 degrees Fahrenheit.
And what's the normal body temperature for a newborn?
98.6 degrees Fahrenheit.
Okay, and that body temperature was hours after his arrival, correct?
That is correct.
And was the treatment the same throughout his time at CMC?
Yes.
No further question.
hi, Ms. Gosling.
Good morning.
We've met before.
Yes.
I'm just going to ask you a couple questions, okay?
Yes.
Is it okay if I just stand here?
yes, you can.
So, you are not any kind of a neonatal specialist, correct?
Correct.
You don't have any specialty in pediatrics, correct?
Correct.
You don't have any specialty in pediatric emergencies, correct?
I have a certification in neonatal resuscitation.
Okay. Is it just resuscitation that you have a certificate in?
I also have pediatric advanced life support certification as well.
Okay. And you do have a specialty in pediatric vascular access,
I do.
correct? So if you have a total specialty, that's the main specialty you have.
Yes,
Is that accurate?
that is correct.
Okay. And that's knowing how to put an IV or an IV lead into a small child.
That is correct.
And you didn't do that for this
No.
baby,
No,
right? Okay. So you didn't perform any vascular procedures on the baby we're talking about?
I did not. The
Okay.
provider did.
Excuse me?
The provider did.
Okay, right. You were not providing
No.
or making orders or any of those things.
That is correct.
Okay. And a lot of what you did was enter data into the computer.
That is correct.
Right? So you took notes from other doctors, not other doctors, but from doctors and other people and put them in the computer.
Yes.
Okay. I mean, you did do a couple things. You gave the baby vitamin K,
Yeah.
right? That's a standard thing you give babies.
Yes.
But erythromycin in his eyes,
Yes.
that's standard.
Yes.
And obviously you took his temperature,
Yes.
right? Were you the only one taking the temperature?
The temperature is being constantly recorded by the machine.
Or when you say the machine, what do you mean?
The kangaroo infant warmer.
Okay, so when a baby needs to be warmed, they're in the machine, the kangaroo warmer, and does that have like an electrode that goes on the baby, or how does it happen?
It has an electrode that attaches to a sticker that is on the baby the whole time.
Right. And so that whole time you're taking a skin temperature, correct? Is that a skin temperature?
Yes.
Because you said your core temperature has to be taken, like it sounds internally,
Yes.
right? And that never happened.
Correct.
And that was because he was so small,
Yes.
right? In doing the treatment that you did, that's not something you do on your own, right?
That is correct.
Okay, so you are there to carry out the doctor's orders.
Yes.
And during this night, during your shift, was this the middle of your shift or the beginning or the end?
In the middle.
In the middle. Okay. The baby was being prepared to go to Dartmouth Hitchcock
Yes.
at the end.
At the end. Yes.
So at some point, the decision was made when he was stable enough, he was going to be moved.
That is correct.
So, and when he was stable enough to be moved, he was moving his extremities.
That is correct.
Okay. And he was peeing and pooping,
None of
and that happened?
None of
Not
that.
yet? Okay. But he was stable enough to be moved and taken up to Lebanon.
That is correct.
Right. Okay. And then your care ended of him.
Yes.
That's all. Thank you.
Anything further?
Well, thank you.
Can I sit down? Attorney Sweeney, if you would take the report from her and return it to the court monitor, please. And ma'am, just be very careful of the wires. Okay, thank you.
Eight calls Dr. Bridget Lynn. You guys aren't going to record.
No, she's.
You just go on the end, there's a whole bunch of script on the ground there. And just come up to and remain standing. Running peacefully.
Ma'am, if you would raise your right hand, please. Do you swear or affirm that any statements or testimony you give will be the truth, nothing but the truth, under the pains and penalties of perjury?
I do.
All right, please be seated. And I'll just remind you, it's a big room, so please keep your voice up as you answer questions. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Good morning, Dr. Lennon.
Good morning.
Could you state your full name and spell it for the record, please?
Sure. Brigid, Brigid, Mary, Mary, Linan, Linnan.
Thank you. Dr. Lennon, can you tell us a little bit about your background, starting with your education?
Sure. My undergraduate degree at Boston College. I went to medical school at Albany Medical College. I did my residency at Eastern Virginia Medical School in emergency medicine. I finished residency in 2008, was board certified as soon as possible in 2009, and I've been practicing as an emergency medicine physician, residency trained and board certified emergency medicine physician since then.
Okay. Can you tell us about your residency?
I did 3 years of training in a academic center in Southern Virginia, where we learned about all the different aspects of emergency medicine.
During your residency, did you learn about pediatric ICU?
Yes,
Did you do rotations there?
yes, it did rotation in both the NICU, the neonatal ICU, and the PICU, which is the pediatric ICU.
Since your residency, have you further developed your PICU and NICU skills and knowledge?
I believe so.
How so?
Through my practice, I see patients, I see probably 15 to 20 patients every single shift, if not more. And throughout the number of years that I've been practicing, I have had the opportunity to take care of a lot of patients in that situation. I've also continued my continuing medical education.
And so you're not board certified specifically in pediatric emergency,
I am not.
but you're certified more generally in just emergency medicine?
Yes.
And what age range does that cover?
Birth till death.
And can you tell us about your work experience?
Sure. Starting 2008, when I finished residency, I went to work for the group that I trained with in Virginia. I worked there for a couple of years. I then went to a small community hospital in North Carolina and got to work there. It was a very different setting. I then moved to California. My husband was in the Navy, so we moved to California. I worked at the busiest emergency department in Southern California for 4 years at Grossmont Hospital. And then in 2018, we moved back to the East Coast, started working at Catholic Medical Center, and I have worked there since then.
Your Honor, I ask the court recognize the witness as an expert in emergency medicine.
Objection?
No objection.
All right, the court finds this witness qualified.
Thank you. So I want to take you back to the early morning hours of December 26th of 2022. Do you remember that morning?
I do.
Were you working a shift at CMC that morning?
I was.
Do you remember any of your patients from that morning?
I do.
How many patients do you remember from that morning?
1.
Was that baby Eckersley?
It was.
Okay.
Objection.
Basis?
Hmm?
Basis?
It's not in her record, but she knows that. It's not in the record for the report.
So foundation?
Foundation, yeah.
Do you want to lay a foundation?
I'll move past that, Your Honor. So this one baby that you remember from that night,
Yes.
did you have any information about the baby before he arrived?
Just prior to coming in, we got a call that there was an infant that had been, what we were told was found in the woods. After being exposed to cold for a while, it was a brand new newborn, and that the child was in significant distress. That was all we knew.
Okay. Any information about how far along the pregnancy was?
There were reports that Mom had said that she thought she was between 3 and 6
Right,
months.
we object to this for hearsay and foundation.
May we
Yes.
approach?
Yes. The objection is saying, ladies and gentlemen, you disregard the last question and the last answer. So the objection is sustained. Please disregard the last question and the last answer. Stricken from the record.
Where were you the moment you first saw the baby?
I was entering our trauma resuscitation bay.
And what was the volume of patients like in the CMC ER that Christmas night?
Moderately busy.
When you saw the baby for the first time, did he get in line with the other patients?
No,
Was he staged behind other emergency patients?
absolutely not.
Was there any delay between the baby's entry to the hospital and the beginning of his treatment?
No,
Why not?
because the baby was immediately identified as the sickest patient in the department.
Okay. So were you in a big hurry to treat this particular patient
Absolutely.
over all the others?
Yes,
Would you say time was of the essence?
absolutely.
Can you tell me, did the baby have fingernails?
Yes,
Did the baby open his eyes that morning?
yes.
What does that tell you about the gestation period of the baby?
Fingernail development begins early. However, by the time there are fully formed fingernails on an infant, they are usually between 32 and 34 weeks, sometimes up to 36 weeks of gestational age.
Okay, so the fingernails tell you that he's somewhere between 32 and 36 weeks.
Yes,
Did the baby open his eyes that morning?
Yes,
What does that tell you about the gestational age of the baby?
but that the baby was at least 30 weeks.
It sounds like a minimum of 32 and a maximum of 36.
Yes, sir.
Is that 8 months along? Am I doing the math right?
Yeah, 40 weeks is full term. So 36 is about a month. Yeah, so we're looking at between 7 and 8 months.
Uh, okay, so was he a small baby?
As for a newborn baby, small, yes. For a gestational age baby born at between 30 and 36 weeks, a little small, but not tiny.
Where did the baby go when he was brought in the door?
Immediately came into our trauma resuscitation bay and into an isolette, which is a warmed examination and treatment table that we have for newborns.
Were you with him when he came in?
Yes,
When the baby first entered the ER, who had overall responsibility for him?
I do. And my team.
Where did you start?
We started by trying to obtain some basic vital signs.
What'd you find out?
We were unable to palpate a pulse. However, the baby did appear to have what we call agonal respirations, just barely trying to make an occasional breath. And we were unable to obtain a temperature because he was too cold.
So what did you do about that?
We immediately placed him in where we had him in the isolette, which is a warming. We use warm blankets. There's a light warming them. We started CPR immediately. And I started to get the equipment together in order to intubate, to establish an airway so that we could breathe for the baby since he wasn't breathing effectively on his own.
Okay. Is that respiratory distress?
Yes.
Um,
I also activated a code NOAA in the hospital, which means a newborn baby is in distress, and activates the team upstairs in the neonatal ICU so that they can assist.
Were you able to determine what caused the respiratory distress?
No.
Did you maintain overall responsibility throughout the baby's time at the hospital?
I did not.
Did the baby leave the hospital that morning?
Yes.
Where'd he go?
He went to Dartmouth to their neonatal ICU
How was he transported?
via EMS emergently.
Okay. When he left the hospital that morning, was he still hypothermic?
Yes.
Why transfer him up to Dartmouth?
Because they have a more robust neonatal ICU program with more resources available to treat a baby that's sick.
Was he still in jeopardy when he left you?
Absolutely.
Nothing further.
I don't have any questions for this witness.
You may sit down.
Thank you.
Please be careful of the wires.
Governor of the state will call Pam Packard to the stand.
We approach.
Yes.
We just swear.
Sure.
Ma'am, if you would raise your right hand, please, I'm going to swear you in. Do you swear or affirm that any statements or testimony you give will be the truth, nothing but the truth, under the pain and penalties of perjury?
I do.
All right. And ma'am, it's a big room and everybody needs to hear you. So if we could just ask that you keep your voice up as you're answering questions.
Okay.
Thank you. Attorney Eckersley, you may proceed.
Good morning, Ms. Packard. How are you?
Good morning. I'm well.
If you could please state your name and spell your last name for the record.
Pamela Packard, Packard.
And are you currently employed?
I am.
Where?
I work for the New Hampshire, state of New Hampshire E911,
And how long have you been working there?
almost 20 years.
Do you receive any training to be a E911 dispatcher?
I do.
Okay, can you describe that training briefly?
When you start, there is about 6 weeks of classroom training where you learn a lot of different elements of the job, a lot of classes within that time frame of different training. And there's also 6 weeks where you're working with another dispatcher who is a training officer that teaches you the job before you are on your own taking calls.
Is your training ongoing as you continue on with your?
Yes, there is training almost every month. There's a training or two throughout the year.
So can you describe some of your responsibilities?
Well, I take a call and I determine the location, the nature of the emergency, and dispatch the proper personnel.
Who do you take a call from?
Anybody who's having an emergency.
Okay, and
If
you don't
anybody that
know
dials
these people.
911.
Sorry,
I'm sorry.
Attorney Eckersley, make sure you're not talking over each other, please.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Anyone that dials 911.
Okay, and you don't know these people personally.
Normally not.
And are you reliant on what they are telling you is happening?
Completely.
Now, you just mentioned that you were, or that you are employed by the state.
Yes.
So where are you based out of when you report to work?
My base is out of Laconia, New Hampshire.
Can you just explain the difference between, or how the process works for when you take a call and you relay that information?
When somebody dials 911, the first thing we want to do is determine where they are and then the nature of their call. And going forth from there, if it is determined to be a call that requires law enforcement, we immediately dispatch to the law enforcement dispatch that answers for that area.
So if I may break that down a little bit then. So you receive a phone call and you gather information?
Yes.
And what is the purpose of that?
To find out the nature of why they're calling. Sometimes if somebody's calling and they just have a question, you want to determine whether they are calling for an emergency and you're going over on an emergency line, or we can transfer on a non-emergency line, so we're not tying that up.
And is that caller the person who you're relying on to provide you that information?
Yes.
Are you relying on that caller to be honest with you when you're taking that information?
I am.
And are you relying on that caller to give you all pertinent information so that you may assist in your determination of what type of emergency there may be?
Yes, I am.
Or whether there is one?
Yes.
So then based upon that reliance, are you assessing the call and the situation in real time?
Yes.
Now you mentioned that you relay or pass along that information.
Right.
Okay, so now you're in Laconia,
Mhm.
correct? So where do you pass that information along?
It depends. To the dispatch that's taking care or taking calls for the location the caller's emergency is.
Okay, so just for example, if you get a call from someone in Bow, New Hampshire,
Objection.
Basis?
He can pose a hypothetical.
Okay. The approach. The objection is sustained in part and overruled in part.
so how do you determine where to call or alert first responders?
By the caller giving me the information of where the emergency is.
And by where the emergency is?
Right.
Okay. After you receive the call, are you alerting the area dispatch directly?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
So is it a direct line of communication from you to the area dispatch?
Yes.
Do you speak with the first responders at all?
No.
Yeah, now I just want to understand, you are at the state level
Yes.
and the dispatchers are down in the city or area level.
Right.
Now, after you receive information from a caller and you pass along the information, do you remain on the line with the caller?
Sometimes.
Okay, and for what purpose?
Usually for medical reasons. We don't stay on for fire or police calls because it isn't an ongoing or event changing thing. Somebody who is in a medical could have a situation where things could change rather quickly. And if you're not on the phone with them and they're not able to call you back, you're not able to update with the information.
Yeah, so it's in part because a person is in medical distress,
Yes,
and then it's also in parts that you can relay information if you need to.
correct.
When does the call typically end?
As soon as the rescue arrives, if it's a medical call that I'm staying on for. And
And after you hang with the caller, do you typically have any further involvement?
No.
Okay, so I just want to again establish you're reliant upon the caller.
Objection asked and answered.
Overruled, but it is leading. So to that
so-
extent, it's sustained. You can re-ask the question.
So again, who are you primarily reliant upon?
the caller.
Now, were you working in your capacity as a 911 e-dispatcher on Christmas night 2022?
I was.
Just before midnight, did you receive a call regarding a woman giving birth in the woods?
Yes.
And prior to testifying today, did you have a chance to listen to the recording from that night?
Yes.
Your Honor, if I may approach the witness.
Yes, you may.
Thank you.
Your Honor, if I may approach the witness, would today's night, 24 is the mark for identification.
Yes, you may.
Okay, now, Ms. Packard, place something in front of you. What is that?
That is a CD.
Okay. Now, if you may look at the bottom here, what is the CD of?
911 call audio.
Okay, now, is this a CD that you reviewed
Yes.
prior to coming here today? Okay. And to your knowledge, that CD was true and accurate to the 911 call as it was, as you received it on that night?
Yes.
If I may move, Your Honor, to move this, to admit this as a full exhibit, published to the jury.
Any objection?
No objection.
The ID is stricken. It's entered as a full exhibit and may be published to the jury.
And Ms. Packard, just before I get into the audio, just have a couple of other questions here. You testified previously that you determined the location and nature of the call.
Yes.
Okay, do you notify law enforcement specifically?
Only when it's a call where police are required to be there.
I'm sorry, Attorney Getzlis, you need to be in front of a microphone for the recording purposes. Thank you.
So do you notify police specifically?
No,
Okay, is that
Well-
dependent on the call?
it depends on the call.
Okay, and on this night, did you notify the police?
I did not.
Okay, who did you notify?
The fire dispatch for Manchester,
And why was that?
because they're the ones who send the rescue to where the call is.
Okay.
Conversation recorded on Monday, December 26, 2022, 24 minutes and 12 seconds.
Miss Summer, what is your emergency?
Can you just hold on for a minute? Is that you accepting the phone call?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, where are you exactly, sir? Okay, are you right in front of it, inside, or?
Okay. Awesome. Now, where did that? So, is that a male caller or a female caller?
That is a male caller.
Okay, and where did the male caller say that he was located?
I didn't
If you
hear
could
it.
hear it.
I didn't hear it.
Okay, if we could go back and replay it. I just asked if you could to pay attention. I just asked if you could to pay attention. I know it might be kind of hard of hearing sometimes. If you need to, I can have you come closer to the TV to hear it. But okay, go ahead.
Okay, are you right in front of it, inside, or? I'm sorry, sir? By the okay.
So, where was the caller calling from?
By the Trestle Bridge.
Okay, near the West Side Arena.
Yes.
And what town? Okay. And your phone number, that's in Manchester, 1 Electric Drive by the Trestle, by West Side Arena. What's the phone number for you? 858 480 6951. Just to confirm, 858 480 6951. Tell me exactly what happened. Well, what happened?
Now, is that a female caller that you are now speaking with?
Yes.
And what is the purpose now of your conversation with her?
To find out what the call is for and what's going on in the situation.
I understood that I didn't know what else I was wrong. When I took out the kid, so. Okay, they're already being notified, okay? All right. I need you to tell me exactly what happened. Okay, are you by the trestle or are you by the ice arena? Are you by the arena or the trestle? Sorry, breaking up. You're by the trestle, okay.
Now, where did she say her location was?
By the trestle.
Stay there, okay, so we know where exactly you are. Okay. Me and my boyfriend. Did you already have the baby? Oh, no, because it's, no. Okay, I'm just confirming, okay, so there being no. All right, I'm sending from Manchester. I'm sending from Manchester ambulance. Stay on the line. I'll come back.
Now, who were you sending for?
The Manchester ambulance.
Why?
Because she was having a medical emergency.
Hi, Townwood Agent 134. Request for an ambulance in Manchester to the trestle down by the ice arena off 151 Electric Avenue. What's going on? I don't have a determinant. I had a hard time.
Okay, so you just mentioned a word in there, determinant.
Mhm.
Can you explain what that is?
Determinant is a part of a code that we give to dispatch. It gives them a level of the priority of the call.
Okay, and why didn't you have a determinant here?
Because I hadn't asked all pertinent questions at this point.
Okay. Now the information. Now you relayed some information to Manchester Fire.
Correct.
Okay, they're located in Manchester.
Yes.
Was that information that you relayed based on what the caller had been telling?
Yes.
I'm getting information from my first caller. I have a female on the line stating she just gave birth. She didn't know she was pregnant. So maybe I was the one who I don't know.
Okay, so what did she say there? If you could hear it.
Maybe I was 1 month along.
Okay. Previously, she mentioned how far along she was, correct?
She said she couldn't be 9 months.
Okay, but now she's saying 1 month?
Yes.
There's no way I was any more than that.
Okay.
No way at all. Yes, I'm standing right at the top and there's also on the side of the electric street. Okay.
Okay, and did she confirm there for fire where she was?
Yes.
All right, we'll be right there. Thank you. All right, ma'am. How old are you? 36? 26. Okay. Yep, they're on the way, okay? Just stay right on the line with me, okay? Very much. All right. How many months pregnant are you? There's no way I was willing to say. No more.
Okay, so how many months pregnant did she say she was then?
There was no way she was more than 3.
More than 3 months? I didn't even know. Okay. And I would have known now. Yeah, I had. Is there any serious bleeding? Yeah, I got the cord kind of coming out. I just kind of makeshift vapor around here now. It's kind of pressure like that. So trying to keep pressure on the cord. Is it just the cord? It was yeah, the cord that's supposed to be cut when you have the case. Right. Still coming out of it. Okay. Where's the fetus? On the ground. Do you have any height?
Now, you mentioned a word to her there, fetus.
Yes.
Why did you use that word?
Because at this point she was stating she was no more than 3 months pregnant, which would make it a non-viable fetus.
Did she tell you whether or not the baby was crying when she gave birth?
No.
Had she done so, would that have changed how you approached the call or analyzed the situation?
Yes.
Where did she say that she was? Or, excuse me. So you asked her where the baby was.
Right.
Where did she say it was?
On the
I could replay it if you had trouble.
probably.
Right. Okay, where's the fetus? On the ground. Do you have any higher?
Were you able to hear that?
Yes, on the ground, and I'm not sure if she said other trestle or under trestle.
Did she say that was in a tent?
No.
Did she say that it was at her camp?
No.
Or at a camp?
No.
Any complications? No. Okay, so then you don't have. Okay. Well, like I said, we do have help on the way, okay? All right. I want you to.
Now, up till this point in their conversation with her, was she answering all of your questions?
Yes.
Was she, were you appropriately relying on her and what she was telling you?
Yes.
Do you have any reason to believe or mistrust what she was telling you?
No.
Assume the most comfortable position. And take a breath. I'm doing my best. Okay. All right. So you're not near where the fetus is, right? No, I couldn't. No, I didn't. Okay. I understand. Is there any? My boys are on back towards here.
No. Actually, play it through a little bit. So you had asked her whether or not she was near the fetus, and what did she say?
She said no, she left it.
And what did she say after that about her boyfriend?
That he went back to, and I didn't hear exactly what the words that were said. Wait by it
Okay.
or check it. Sorry.
Play it again.
That's good. Okay. I understand. Is there any? My boys are on back towards being and it's his own charge up to the things.
Were you able to hear what she said then?
It's very jumbled.
Okay.
Okay. So what is your first name? Alexandra. Okay. We do have. Okay, Alexandra. I just want you to leave. I want you to leave the fetus where it is, so the paramedics.
Now, why did you tell her to leave the baby where it was?
At this point, she was hemorrhaging, so I wasn't going to send her to go looking for it or back to where it was because she was in a medical emergency.
Okay, so now your focus has shifted
Yes.
to what?
She's the patient.
Okay. So based on that, you were now, based on what she had told you, you were not concerned about the baby at this point.
Saying not concerned is kind of a weird word. I was shifting my focus to her for the patient because at this point she was the one that was there with the medical need.
Okay.
I know you said he's keeping an eye out to see where it is. Okay. No, where it is. You gotta come out one person and one right after. Oh.
Now, what did she say then about the location of the baby?
We know where it is.
Okay.
And then kind of one last minute and then the other was down on the spot. Okay. And I know you said you still had the cord attached to you, correct? Yeah. All right, listen carefully. I'm going to tell you what to do next, okay? I want you to find some towels.
Now, when she said, we know where it is, I just want to follow up. Did she provide any specific location where it was?
No.
Had she done that, would you have provided that to fire?
Yes.
Or something. I'll be right down. All right, I want you to place that under you. Okay, and a blanket and a large towel to keep yourself warm, okay? Place the towels under your bottom. Place the towels under your bottom and light.
And what are you doing here during this portion of the call?
I'm putting her in a position to start giving her further instruction.
Okay, so you're now,
I'm instructing her to get on the ground, put a towel under her.
okay, so at this point, I think you mentioned it before, she's your patient now.
Right.
And so you're focused on getting her treatment and help until fire comes?
Right.
Down on your back, not down. Okay? I'm just trying to help. Alexandra, listen to me, okay? I need to tell you how to stop the bleeding, okay? I want you to make a fist with your hand and place it just above your pubic hair, right near your belly button. Do you understand so far?
It's on the area of, like, right under my belly button before my layers of hair starts.
Right, just above the hair, okay? Do you understand me so far? I want you to press down with your fist and apply firm but gentle pressure. Don't let up, okay? This may briefly increase the bleeding or cramping, but you have to keep doing it. This will help stop the bleeding or cramping. Okay? All right.
Now, at this point during the conversation, is she following to your knowledge, is she following your instructions?
Yes.
And was she able to relay any information back to you as she was following those instructions?
Yes.
Okay.
All right.
Oh, again.
You're going to press your fist down and apply firm but gentle pressure. Don't let up. You're going to keep your fist pressing down, okay? This is going to cause the bleeding to become heavy again and some more cramping that could happen. But you can keep doing this. This is going to help. It's going to help stop the bleeding, okay? How are you doing?
I'm okay. Yeah, it's all right.
All right. Has the bleeding stopped or the cramping stopped?
I'll just accept things I did, but
Okay. So just the bleeding. Are you still bleeding or can you still feel bleeding?
yeah.
Okay, and you're bleeding seriously. You need to make sure you're doing that pressure. Make sure somebody's keeping an eye out for the ambulance so they can get to where you are.
Do I get you keep that eye out for the ambulance?
Now, you provided her an instruction there, correct?
Yes.
And what was that instruction?
Bleeding control.
Okay. Did you also instruct her to keep an eye out for the ambulance?
I instructed her to have somebody keep an eye out for the ambulance.
Okay,
I believe.
and did she relay to someone your instruction?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's just gonna go and make sure that everything is.
No, I know what you mean. It's fine. Okay, at least you're going to get some treatment, okay? It's hard.
I don't know how long we'll be in there. Or I get really bad anxiety.
Okay, I don't know. It could be something that you're in there, you get checked out, they take care of what they need to. But you know, the hospital's been really, really busy, but this is a little different, okay?
So now at this point, what are you doing with
Just
the caller?
Trying to calm her, reassure her. She was scared. She was wondering how long she would have to go to the hospital for or be there for. She said that she had real bad anxiety. So I was just trying to reassure her that they're going to take care of her to the best of their ability at this point.
And now, as part of your training and experience, when you have people going through these types of emergency situation, is this part of what you do
It is.
to reassure
To
them
be
and to
calm
keep
and
them?
reassuring and be that voice on the other end of the line when there is something that they're trying to hold on to.
And you're doing so until fire comes
Correct.
or rescue comes.
Right.
At that point. Okay.
Your boys are deaf on this one.
Yeah, well, with the police.
Isn't it very, very cool? Like, I've heard that, I think I went on the court and called, if it doesn't get caught, even though the police officer and that's where the life and death comes in.
Depends. I mean, this just happened, right? So it's not body conscience.
No.
Something that hasn't come out like for some time after you have the baby is usually something that causes an infection. You're getting looked at right away, so I don't think we're going to be in that type of life or death situation right now. Okay, and that's why we're trying to control the bleeding. Okay, are you still bleeding?
Yeah.
Okay.
A little bit, not bad though, not as bad as it was.
Good, yeah.
Okay, and what did you ask her right then about whether or not she was bleeding?
I asked her if she was still bleeding.
Yeah, was she able to relay information back to you in real time?
Yeah.
Okay.
This is what causes it to try to see. So you're doing great. I know it's not an easy situation. I'm sorry. This is what you're going through. And of course, obviously surprised.
It's not family drama, so I got some take on, you know?
Right? Well, you made it past Christmas because it's after midnight.
I know.
So it's not a Christmas Day memory for you, thankfully.
It's still Christmas Day, so me.
I know what you mean. But I mean, if you try to look at it this way, it's a little bit easier to think about it not actually being Christmas Day, okay?
Yeah.
That way.
It's a little easier now knowing that I once time did. So that I know what to look for in the future.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you never know. And, you know, maybe somebody can just tell you what, what your chances are of this happening again or not. All right.
Now, so you're having a conversation about whether or not this could happen again or not, correct?
Right.
All right. Now, at this time, and really throughout this entire time, were you under the assumption that you were working with a non-viable baby?
Yes.
And again, where did that information come from?
At the beginning of the call, when she gave me the information stating that she couldn't have been more than 3 months along.
It just wasn't time, I guess. Who knows what happened? These things are spontaneous.
Honestly, it might be like, I know for a fact I'm not ready to have kids if I mental state where again.
Okay.
I do want to hard to not have this happen before.
Sure.
I think everything's part of this is a very, very high risk of getting questions.
It is. It is, but it is what it is, and we all learn from everything we experience in our life.
But knowing that I'm not ready, and knowing that I couldn't bring him to this world myself, I couldn't do that because I'm putting myself in the same situation I can when I was born.
Okay. I'm just going to scoot the rest of you and just let them know what's going on so far, okay?
Thank you.
All right, you're welcome. All right, I'll be right here until the help's with you. So before I leave.
That's promising.
Hi, 718-134, referencing your medical on electric.
Okay.
There is somebody keeping an eye out for you, so they can direct you to where she is, because I got her off her feet, doing a funnel massage to stop the bleeding. She was probably less than 3 months pregnant, maybe not viable,
Okay.
but she still has the cord attached to her,
Okay.
and with serious bleeding that we've been able to control.
Okay.
Okay?
Can you just, so you called back in now during this part of the call, you called back into fire to provide them with an update.
Mhm.
Can you just recap again, what did you tell them?
I told them what was going on with the call, what was going on with the patient, and the status of the caller and the baby.
Okay, and what did you tell them again with the baby?
That it was she was less than 3 months along, and that the baby was non-viable.
Okay. At that point, had you received any information from the caller that the baby was crying?
No.
Had you received any additional information from the caller? Now we're almost 11 minutes into the call about where the baby's location was.
No.
So you hadn't provided that type of information to fire when you called back for that update.
Right.
Had you received that information, would that have been something that you would have relayed to fire?
Yes.
They are
Located actually under the overpass or down by the ice arena?
Literally at the end of
The trestle? So,
it's as you come down Kelly 3, let's see, you're gonna come down. What's the name of that road that
Okay, so during this portion of the call, was fire looking to confirm the location?
Yes.
And what did the caller say?
She was
her location.
at the trestle.
Was there any additional information about the baby at that point?
No.
yeah,
Bremer Street? Yeah, as you come down Bremer Street, they're more close to where the trestle is, right there.
going up on 290.
Perfect, yeah, he's looking at someone else with the ambulance. The boyfriend is, okay. Alexandra, let me know when the rescue's there with you, okay? The bleeding stopped?
the bleeding is not as bad, so.
Okay, okay, now I know it's not as bad, but keep doing the massaging, okay? To make sure we keep it under control, okay? It's important for you to keep talking to me though, so I know you're all right. You're doing
I'm right
great.
here outside, so.
Okay.
Okay.
And try to use it like, and try to keep yourself warm. I know it's not easy outside. It's very cold today. If anything changes, tell me immediately, okay?
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much.
The rest of there.
Yes, there.
All right. Take care of yourself.
You're very much.
You're welcome. Bye-bye. Thanks.
You know, Ms. Packard, so call was approximately 12 minutes in length. Did you know where the baby was at the end of it?
No.
Were you provided any information as to its location?
No.
No further questions. Thank you.
Council approach. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I think this is a good time for us to take our mid-morning break. So we're going to take a 15-minute break and then we'll come back and finish this witness's testimony. So again, please don't discuss the case now with each other or with anybody else. Don't do any independent research. 15 minutes. We'll come back at about 10 up, maybe a little bit after that. All right. All rise for the jurors, please, ma'am. You can just stay there for just a moment. Okay. All right, ma'am, you may step down. Just be careful of those wires there, please. And we'll have you back in a couple of minutes. Council, can you approach for just a minute? You may all be seated.
No problem.
Or do you want the display and your cross?
Thank you. I think I'm just gonna mark mine for ID and just reference that it's the
Sure.
same. I'm a little worried maybe Sam's are ever so slightly off
Fair.
based on the downloading.
Okay.
But
All right.
thank
Sounds good. Thank
you.
Thing.
Yeah, nice job. Who told you that?
No, the sign.
Oh,
The sign.
good job. So I'm just gonna ask you questions. Just answer truthfully and honestly, and we'll be good. Yeah. You saved her. You saved her. It's worth. Sorry. Yeah. Wow.
I just love this. I don't drink sugar. Yeah.
Yes.
All right, for the honorable court.
I think we're waiting for Attorney Strand, Attorney Cossack.
What's that?
Oh, Attorney Strand is
I
here.
was gonna say, she just came in with me.
All right, ready. Yes.
All rise.
Please be seated.
Sure.
You can bear with me, Ms. Packard. I'm just going to set up the technologies to avoid any delays. Ms. Packard, I want to talk to you a little bit about the call we all just listened to. The first caller you spoke to was a male.
Yes.
And later in the call, the female announced that the male's name was George.
I don't recall.
You don't recall? Would it refresh your recollection to listen to a clip of the body-worn camera?
The
To see what she
body-worn
said.
camera?
I mean, the body-worn camera, I'm sorry, the 911 call.
I guess to,
So that you can hear what was said.
yeah.
And this is State's Exhibit 24, but I'm playing the defense's USB, which is the same thing, marked as I for ID only. Oh, yeah.
Conversation report.
Does that refresh your recollection about whether she said the male was her boyfriend?
Yes.
And she said the male was her boyfriend?
Yes.
Does that refresh your recollection about what she
Yeah.
said the male's name was?
Yeah.
And his name was George.
Yes.
And you asked the male to provide his phone number,
Correct.
and he provided it to you. Sorry, is that a yes?
Yes, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. And you read it back to him, and he confirmed you had the correct number.
Right.
It was difficult to get information from the first caller, George.
Right.
You asked, what happened? Sorry, is that a yes?
Yes. Sorry.
No, that's okay. I know it's not a normal way of speaking. And George didn't answer you. He put the female on the phone.
Yes, he did.
And you later learned that that female voice was Alexandra.
Yes.
She told you she goes by Allie.
Yes.
And Allie sounded like she was in distress.
She did.
She was breathing heavy.
Yes, she was.
She was crying at times.
Yes.
And on direct, you said she sounded scared.
Yes.
She told you she had no clue she was pregnant.
Yes.
She said that multiple times.
She did.
She told you she was having a hard time.
Yes.
And she clarified that she was standing right on the path to the entrance of the trestle on the side of Electric Street.
Yes.
Allie told you she had 2 kids,
Yes.
that the cord was still hanging out of her.
Yes.
Allie was particularly concerned about the cord. You guys talked about that a decent amount.
Yes.
She said she needed it to be cut to make sure she could live.
Yes.
She thought that it could cause her to die.
Yes.
And on direct, you mentioned the first time you asked Allie how far along she was, that she said 1 month.
I believe so.
Are you positive that's what she said, or would it be helpful to have that closer up to you so that you can be sure?
She gave more than one answer
Okay,
at
I'm
different
talking.
times, so I can't remember which one we're talking about.
Okay, so the first, is it fair to say the first time she said that there's no way she was 9 months?
Yes.
And then the second time she said, maybe I was 3 months along at most. There's no way I was any more than that.
Right.
And then the third time you said, how many months pregnant are you?
Right.
And she said, there was no way I was more than 3.
Correct.
She didn't say 1 month.
I would have to hear it again.
Okay, so would it refresh your recollection to listen to the beginning portion of the call to see what she said about that?
Yes.
This is defense's exhibit III for ID, same as state exhibit 24. And I'm going to play for you from the very beginning of the call to 3 minutes and 18 seconds in. And you tell me if you want me to play more than that.
Okay.
And this is for housekeeping because this is a full exhibit. I'm not going to
Conversation recorded on Monday, December 26th, 2022, 24 minutes and 12 seconds.
Name someone, what is your emergency?
What can I do?
Okay, where are you exactly, sir?
I saw that you meant it in the answer.
Okay,
Are
are you right in front of it, inside, or?
If I concentrate
I'm sorry, sir?
by the concentrate,
By the trestle? Okay.
Yep.
And what town? Okay. And your phone, is that in Manchester, 1 Electric Drive by the trestle, by what side are we on? What's the phone number for you?
858 480 6951.
Okay, I'm just going to confirm 858 480 6951. Tell me exactly what happened.
Hello?
Hi, what happened?
I had no clue that I was pregnant, and there was no way I was 9 months along.
So is that fair to say that was the first time that we
Yes.
talked about this, right?
Yes.
And what Allie said was, I had no clue I was pregnant and there's no way I was 9 months along.
Yes.
When I just called those kids, so,
Okay, they're already being notified, okay? All right. I need you to tell me exactly
you're
what
on
happened.
the ice arena, okay?
Okay, are you by the trestle though, or are you by the ice arena? Are you by the arena or the trestle? I'm sorry, it's breaking up. You're by the trestle. Okay, stay there, okay, so we know where exactly you are.
Hi,
Okay.
me and my boyfriend.
Did you already have the baby?
No, because, yeah,
Okay, I'm just confirming, okay, so they're being
I
notified.
know, it's kind of like
All right, I'm setting for Manchester ambulance. Stay on the line. I'll come back to you next.
And for the record, this is the first time that you're calling the local dispatch and updating them.
Right.
Best farmer.
Hi, 918-134. Request for an ambulance in Manchester. This is the trestle down by the ice arena off 1 Electric Avenue.
Hey, what's going on?
I don't have a determinant. I had a hard time getting information from my first caller. I have a female on the line stating she just gave birth. She didn't know she was pregnant.
So maybe I was 3 months along at most.
And that's the second time you guys have talked about it, right?
Right.
And she said, maybe I was 3 months along at the most.
Yes.
There's no way I was any more than that.
She says, no way I was any more than that.
Correct.
Under the trestle.
No way at all. Yes, I'm standing right at the path that enters the trestle.
And the local dispatcher tries to clarify. Is she saying she's under the trestle? Right? That's what he says?
Right.
And then she says,
There's no way I was any more than that.
Under the trestle.
No way at all. Yes, I'm standing right at the path that enters the trestle.
and she clarifies, I'm standing at the entrance to the path at the trestle.
Right.
She doesn't lead them to believe she's under the trestle.
Right.
Side of the left street.
Okay. All right, we'll be right there.
Thank you. All right, ma'am. How old are you?
Okay, check.
36?
26.
26.
Okay. That's me, right?
Okay. Yep, they're on the way, okay? Just stay right on the line with me, okay?
Thank you very much.
All right. How many months pregnant are you?
There's no way I was more than 3.
No more than.
And this is the third time you guys are talking about potentially how far along the pregnancy might have been, right?
Right.
And she says there's no way I was more than 3.
Right.
And so nowhere in those 3 times where you guys are talking about that does she say 1 month.
No, I don't hear it.
And on direct, the state had asked you about the second time you guys are talking about that, right?
Right.
And that's when you said it was 1 month, but we learn now when it's a little bit closer to you. That's not what Allie said. Is that a yes?
Yes.
Sorry, I know it's weird. Usually in life, we just nod our heads to people. And on direct, you said that you didn't have any information about where the fetus was,
Right.
right? This prosecutor asked you that a ton of times, didn't he? Is that a yes?
Yes. Sorry.
No, it's okay. But you asked Allie, where is the fetus?
Yes.
And you used that term because at that point you did not think the baby was alive.
Correct.
And she told you, quote, on the ground on the other side of the trestle.
I remember on the ground,
Would it refresh
possibly on the other side of the trestle. I don't remember.
your recollection to listen to that portion of the call?
Sure.
This is defense's triple I for ID, prosecution exhibit 24.
I'm gonna reopen it.
Conversation
Yeah, the eyes of the cord that's supposed to be cut when you have the kid.
Right.
Don't get me out of it.
Okay. Where's the fetus?
On the ground on
Do
the
you
other
have
side
any?
of the
Do
vessel.
you have any?
Does that refresh your recollection?
It's more clear.
And what she said was on the ground on the other side of the trestle. You would
Yes.
agree with me, that's what she said. Sorry, I just want to make sure that we were talking over each other. I'm sorry about that. What she said was on the ground on the other side of the trestle, correct?
Correct.
And could you see the time on the 911 call?
I could, but I didn't look at the time.
Okay. I'm gonna ask you about the time, so I should need. I'm just going back 10 seconds.
Okay.
Can you take a notice of the time?
Have the kid.
Right.
Don't get me out of it.
Okay. Where's the fetus?
On the ground on the other side of the vessel.
Do you have any?
So that was around 3 minutes and 56 seconds into the call.
Yes.
And you never asked her to further clarify that?
No.
But you did ask another question. You said, you're not where the fetus is.
I believe so.
And Allie told you no.
Correct.
She told you her boyfriend went back to where the fetus was to get his phone.
I didn't remember the part about the phone, but yes.
Is that your memory now after you've listened to the call?
I don't remember hearing the word phone.
Okay, would it refresh your recollection to listen to that part of the call? Sorry, is it? Yes, okay. This is defense's triple I for ID and state exhibit 24.
It's like to get this cord cut and make sure that I let it.
Okay. I understand. Is there?
Yeah, my boyfriend went back towards the fetus to be able to go and his kid's phone and charge it up so he can get contact with me.
Does that refresh your recollection?
Yes.
Okay, and what Allie said was her boyfriend went back to where the fetus was to get his phone. Is that a yes?
Yes.
You told Allie, leave the fetus where it is.
Right. Yes.
And you also wanted to make sure the paramedics could see Allie when they arrived.
Correct.
Allie told you after the first delivery, the fetus lasted for only 1 minute.
I believe that was the cramping.
Okay, would it refresh your recollection to listen to that part of the 911 call to know what Allie said about whether or not one of the fetuses lasted for 1 minute?
Yes.
Defense exhibit triple I for identification, state's exhibit 24.
You kind of had two come out, one first and then one like right after.
Okay.
They're both kind of, one lasted a minute and then the other was dead on spot.
Okay.
And what you and Allie were talking about is the 2 deliveries she thought she had.
Correct.
And does that refresh your recollection about whether Allie told you that the first delivery, that baby lasted for 1 minute?
She said one lasted for a minute. Yes.
And she said the next died on the spot.
Right.
You were realizing that Allie was bleeding a lot,
Yes.
and that prompted you to tell her to lay down.
Right.
You wanted her to place a blanket and a large towel under herself.
Right.
But she told you she didn't have anything like that.
Right.
Just the blanket that was in her pants to absorb the blood.
Right.
You told her, don't sit up.
Correct.
And that's because that would not at all help the bleeding from stopping.
Right.
Standing up could make the bleeding worse.
Yes.
And we're hearing you explain to her how to do her own fundal massage.
Correct.
And tell me, if you don't know, that's fine, but a fundal massage is painful.
Yes, it is.
Typically, women aren't doing their own fundal massages.
No.
And you kept checking in with Allie to make sure she was okay. You were worried about her.
Yes.
You recognized that she needed to go to the hospital.
Yes.
And when you were communicating to her that she needed to go to the hospital, she asked how long she would have to be there.
Correct.
She told you that hospitals give her really bad anxiety.
Yeah.
You were trying to console Allie,
Yes.
telling her to try to not think about this as a Christmas Day memory.
Correct.
She, is sort of going along with that. She says, well, this will give her something to look forward to in the future, maybe.
Yes.
And you encouraged her. Maybe this just wasn't her time.
I don't remember my exact words with that, but yeah.
Something to that effect. Is that fair?
Yes.
And you were trying to be nice because she was clearly upset.
Yes.
And you didn't want her to think this was her fault, so you told her these things are spontaneous.
Yes.
She told you she didn't want to put herself in the same situation her parents were in when she was born.
Correct.
At that point, you didn't really know what she meant by that.
No.
But you continued going along and encouraging and consoling her.
Yes.
After you calmed her down for a minute, you decided to update rescue.
Correct.
And you didn't tell rescue that at that point you knew she had said the fetus was on the ground on the other side of the trestle.
No.
You told rescue that Allie was probably less than 3 months pregnant.
Correct.
You said out loud that the baby was not viable.
Correct.
You communicated to them that you believed the cord was still attached to her body.
Yes.
You checked in with Allie to make sure she was still on the phone.
Yes.
She said, I'm right here, I'm still alive.
Yes.
If I can just have a moment. Nothing further for this witness.
Sorry if I just stay at the table, Your Honor.
Yes, you may.
Thank you. So, Ms. Packard, all of the information that you relayed to fire dispatch came from the caller?
I believe so, yes.
You believe so, or
Yes.
was she your primary source of information?
Yes.
She's the one that you relied on,
Yes.
and she's the one that you asked questions of,
Yes.
and she is the one that responded to you.
Correct.
The call lasted approximately 12 minutes.
Yes.
At the end of the call, did you know where the baby's location was?
No.
I have nothing further, Your Honor.
Ms. Packer, what you knew at the end of that call was that Allie had said the fetus was on the other side of the trestle bridge. That's what she said to you.
Today, that is what I heard.
And that is what Allie said on that call.
Yes.
Nothing further. All right. Council approach? Ma'am, you may sit down. And you are excused. Does the state wish to call any additional witnesses?
No, Your Honor, state rest.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, the state has now rested. What we're going to do is I'm going to release you for lunch now. I'm going to have you come back at 1:25. And we may resume testimony at that time. Once again, don't talk about the case. Don't do any independent research. We will see you back here for what I expect to be a 1:30 start. All right, all rise to the jurors, please. May be seated. All right, the state has now rested. Mary Kosig, you indicated you wanted to make a motion.
Thank you. In the first instance, and I think you flagged this at the bench, the two felony assault charges, I believe, should be treated as alternate theories, according to State v. Lynch and State v. Castine. That the legislature had, in a reckless charge like this, they've criminalized the act of causing bodily injury, but it's not each individual injury, it's the conduct. And in each of these, and I'm talking about charge IDs 205, 4609C and 2054610C. So that's the first thing I wanted to say.
So I put, you're just wanting to point out that you believe it alternative theory.
I'm right. I just bring that up. I know you already said it, but I think it wasn't clear about, at least. No.
But you're not suggesting that they don't both go to the jury.
No.
Okay.
All right. So the defense moves to dismiss charge ID number 2054609C, charging Ms. Eckersley with second-degree assault and that she recklessly caused bodily injury to another under circumstances manifesting extreme indifference to the value of human life when she caused respiratory distress to her newborn infant when she abandoned the newborn infant where the ambient temperature was extremely cold. So the state has not offered evidence that Allie was aware there was a risk that the baby could be hypothermic or that she knew what hypothermia was. As we just heard, she was told to leave the fetus where it was.
Okay,
And so
hold on a second. You just referenced 609C, which is the respiratory distress.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're right.
Hypothermia.
Yep.
So
Sorry about that. That's because that's what I wrote out.
okay, so start
So-
again, please.
Okay. So, so the state has not offered evidence that Ms. Eckersley was aware there was a risk that the baby could be in respiratory distress, or that she knew anything about that. She was told to leave the fetus where it was, and then there's not evidence that she consciously disregarded a risk, even in the light most favorable to the state. As to causing bodily injury to another, the testimony from the doctor, Linan, was that she didn't know what caused the respiratory distress. She couldn't say to a medical certainty. And also, she didn't say that that was an injury. No one testified to how the baby was injured. So respiratory distress, I think, would be a condition he was in, but no one has said an injury or what harm he suffered by being in respiratory distress. As to the word abandoned, I looked for, I don't think there's a statutory definition in the second-degree assault statute, but the only statutory definition I could find was on RSA 169C3, where they said the abandoned means the child has been left by his parent, guardian, or custodian without provision for his care, supervision, or financial support, although financially able to provide such support. And the dictionary definition is the plain language dictionary definition of abandon is to leave something and never come back and have no intention of going back. And I think in this case, that's the evidence has shown that she did go back. She took them back. But I think the most important part of this is the element of proving that Ms. Eckersley acted under circumstances manifesting extreme indifference to the value of human life. So I point, Your Honor, to two cases, State v. Woodard, where...
Do you want to give me the citation?
Yeah, sure.
The
120
cases that you're citing, you
Yep.
go back and do the other ones as well.
Did I say another case?
Yes, you did. Well, actually, that was for the alternative theories. So we're not
Right.
doing that.
So State v. Woodard, which is 121 New Hampshire 970, 1980. It's a 1981 case. The holding in the case was the trial judge did not err in considering all of the circumstances surrounding the assault when the sentence was imposed. So in that case, the court held that a judge can consider all of the surrounding circumstances, whether to decide whether something is, whether someone has acted with cruelty or with extreme indifference to the value of human life. And then there's a case, the other one is State v. Bailey, 127 New Hampshire 416, 1985, where the court,
Can you say that again?
sorry, 127 New Hampshire 416. It's a 1985 case where the court held that, or they cited themselves saying that they had held previously that it's fallacious to assume that evidence of extreme indifference must be limited to the injuries resulting from the actual assaults committed.
These are both sentencing cases.
That's a sentencing case, yes.
And how are you
And then-
applying that to the motion to dismiss stage?
Well, because the case I'm going to talk to you about next cites that case. So, for that purpose.
Okay, go ahead.
So this is State v. Chalpin, and this case is unpublished. It was just decided on July 12th, 2024, so it's pretty new. There's a Westlaw citation, 2024 WL 3381451, and that was issued on July 12th, 2024. And this was about jury instructions, where but the jury instructions for second-degree assault, extreme indifference also make clear that when considering the exceptional cruelty and extreme indifference elements, the jury was not limited to considering only the injury alleged in each indictment. So that stands for the proposition that all of the circumstances can be considered when considering that particular element, extreme indifference. And that case emphasizes the word circumstances, that an attacker acts with extreme indifference when he inflicts any degree of bodily injury on a victim, and when the circumstances of the attack demonstrate a blatant disregard for the risk of the victim's life. And I think that given all the circumstances in this case and the totality of the evidence, that the state cannot prove beyond a reasonable doubt to a rational juror, even in the light most favorable to the state, that Ms. Eckersley acted with extreme indifference to the value of human life. I mean, the totality of the evidence shows that Ms. Eckersley thought the baby was dead. So we have her talking to the 911 operator, saying that she didn't know she was 9 months pregnant, or she didn't think she was 9 months pregnant. She didn't know she was pregnant. That she thought she had 2 babies. She says to the 911 operator that the first one lasted a minute and the second one was dead when she gave birth to it. We know now that's the placenta. The testimony of Lauren Berry was that Allie told Lauren Berry, Natalia Risher in the ambulance that she heard a cry from the baby. That she tells the 911 operator that the fetus is on the ground on the other side of the trestle, which is where the fetus was. At least one was on the ground, which is the placenta. I think it was Officer Collins testified they found the placenta on the ground. There was testimony today that the baby was covered in dirt when he came to the hospital, which implies that he was on the ground also. In the 911 call, she doesn't make statements that she's happy she doesn't have a baby. She makes statements saying that, she's not ready to have a baby, and talks about how she wants to, not be in the same position her parents were when she was born. And I think that is the opposite of extreme indifference to the value of human life, that she wanted to be a good mother. And she said that she's not in a position to take care of her baby, and so that shows she would be concerned about a baby's welfare. And then in the sort of 15, 20 minutes where she's talking about, being at the store and walking around, she's telling all of them that she lives on the other side of the trestle bridge. She's telling them that's where she lives. And it seems like during the video that Lauren Berry was being shown, where she's in the ambulance, that everyone seems to know that, at least that much at that point, that they're all saying she lives over there, and it makes more sense to go there because that's where she lives. And that's where there was a homeless encampment And then, and at the same time, this is when police and fire are spending a lot of time trying to get her to say where George is and what his phone number is. And they're all saying that to her over and over again. And then Lauren Barry tells her that no matter what, when the baby is born, it's a life. And then Allie snaps to attention and she says, I agree with that. And then she's going so fast to where the baby is that they're yelling at her to slow down. So I think that also shows she was not acting with extreme indifference to the value of human life. And then when Lauren Barry takes the baby out of the tent, we heard, everyone's talking and they're all saying the baby's still moving, it's still moving. And then Allie says to Officer Collins, he's still moving. Is it Collins? Yeah. That she says to Officer Collins, is he still moving? And he looks at her and he says, oh no, it's gone. It's been gone. And he says that to her because the words he used were hysterical. And she's hysterical because she thought the baby was alive because everyone's running around saying that he was still moving. And I think that shows that she was surprised that he was alive and excited. And the way Officer Collins calmed her down was to tell her that he was not alive. And then, she sort of just sits down and is upset about that part. So I think, given the totality of the circumstances, I think even if the court is satisfied there's enough to go forward on the other elements, I think that the state has not proven beyond no rational juror could find beyond a reasonable doubt that the state has proven that Ms. Eckersley acted with extreme indifference to human life, even in the light most favorable to the state. So for charge ID 2054610C, this is the one charging the hypothermia, that she caused hypothermia to her newborn infant. The arguments for the rest of the mental state and the extreme indifference are the same. But as to the hypothermia, again, no one testified to a medical certainty that the baby suffered an injury. We heard that he was hypothermic and that he became stable enough to be transported to a different hospital. The doctor did not say that hypothermia in and of itself is an injury. There was no testimony from any doctor that saw the baby after the fact that he had any kind of other injury from this event. And as far as causing hypothermia, there wasn't really an explanation of what hypothermia really is or how it's caused. And certainly the doctor didn't say that Ms. Eckersley caused hypothermia. It can't be that just because she was homeless and gave birth, which is not a voluntary act outside, that's what caused the baby to have hypothermia. No one's pinpointing when the hypothermia began. So I think that there has not been enough testimony for a rational juror to find beyond a reasonable doubt, in light most favorable to the state, that Allie caused the baby to have hypothermia, or the hypothermia is even an injury. Like, there's no one has said what the harm was from the hypothermia. So that's those two charges. As to charge ID 2045614C, which is the indictment charging Ms. Eckersley with falsifying physical evidence. She's accused of concealing the location of her newborn infant with the purpose to impair its availability, which I think modifies location in such an investigation. So concealing the location of her infant, I would point the court to State v. Gunnip, which is 174 New Hampshire 778. It's a 2022 case, which says that the thing that has to be falsified has to be something that has a physical substance. So I think the location itself is not the thing that has physical substance, and it wasn't impaired because we went there. We went to the location, and there's no evidence that Allie tried to, cover the path, cover the tent. In fact, she took them right there. So I think as far as concealing the location, I think it's not, doesn't really fit the facts. I think at most this may go to RSA 642(1), obstructing government administration, maybe more close to that because she was not telling them right away where it was, but just telling them where it was is not concealing the location. I think it has to be more physical evidence than that. The testimony was that the baby had not been touched or cleaned. So then I think even if you construe the word its availability to modify the newborn infant, there's nothing, no one has said that Allie hid the baby or touched him at all. There was no testimony about that. In fact, they testified that he was covered in dirt, which implies he was on the ground and hadn't been touched. So for those reasons, the court should dismiss this case because the state can't prove to a rational juror beyond a reasonable doubt, even though light most favorable to the state, that she's guilty of that charge. As to the reckless conduct, that Ms. Eckersley recklessly engaged in conduct that placed another in danger of serious bodily injury when she abandoned her newborn infant where the ambient temperature was extremely cold. This is charge ID 2045612C. I've made the argument before about her mental state, which is that she was under the impression that the baby was dead and she couldn't consciously disregard a risk that she didn't know existed. But also that this placed the baby in danger of serious bodily injury. Again, there was no testimony from the doctor about the baby being in danger of serious bodily injury, or what that serious bodily injury would be if you were in danger of serious bodily injury. I don't think there's any evidence presented on that count, on that element, excuse me. And then that she abandoned her newborn infant where the ambient temperature was extremely cold. The testimony at the trial was how cold it was when everyone got there at the end, how cold it was. And even then, it was sort of just people saying it was very cold. It was, I think it was 18 degrees, but no one was able to testify to the temperature inside the tent when Allie left it. So I think the state, even the light most favorable to the state has not proven that element, since that is the causation. So we'd ask the court to dismiss that charge, which is an enhanced misdemeanor. As to the, there's charge ID on here? Okay. As to the complaint charging misdemeanor endangering the welfare of a child or incompetent, I don't have it, there's no charge ID on our copy of this complaint. So.
Do you want the charge ID?
Okay, sure.
2045633C.
Okay. 5633. Okay. All right. So now I'm talking about 204566333C, which is the endangering the welfare of a child.
Just 563.
Oh, I'm sorry. I wrote it down wrong. Which charges that Allie knowingly endangered the welfare of her newborn infant by purposely violating a duty of care or protection which endangered the infant's health or safety when she abandoned the newborn infant in a tent without heat or proper clothing in the woods when the outside temperature was approximately 15 degrees Fahrenheit and failed to immediately seek medical attention or medical assistance for over an hour. Again, I don't think the state has reached, even like most favorable to the state, the level of proving the mental state, the knowingly or the purposeful mental state. Since again, I think the testimony in the totality of the testimony is that Allie didn't know the baby was alive. But also the failing to immediately seek medical assistance mean, she called 911. 911 was called, and then 911 was there. No one would have been there had that not happened. So she did seek medical assistance. And so I think that negates that charge altogether, that she called 911. So the evidence presented is that she called 911 close to the time the baby was born, since she was still bleeding and hemorrhaging when she was on the phone with the 911 operator. So again, even in the light most favorable to the state, I don't think the state has reached the level of proving that Allie had a purposeful mental state to violate a duty of care. Again, I would point, Your Honor, back to the 911 testimony, where Allie said that she wanted to make sure that she didn't make the same mistakes her parents made, and that she wasn't ready to take care of her baby, and she was trying to talk herself into the fact that it was okay that she had a miscarriage because of that, because she wanted to be a good parent. So I would say that because of that, I would say that purposely violated a duty of care, that did not happen. And there's no proof that she did act purposely with a conscious object to violate a duty of care she had to her baby. For those reasons, I think even the light most favorable to the state could not prove to a rational juror that this is proof beyond a reasonable doubt.
So, Your Honor, I'll start with 609C. First of all, I think all three of those cases are sentencing cases, which would indicate that all three of those more than likely made it past a motion to dismiss.
I'm sorry. You're saying all three of those cases?
Cases that the defendant
I see.
cited.
Okay, yeah.
I've read the July 12th case recently, but I don't remember exactly. But I believe it is a sentencing case. So the evidence in this case, I think makes clear extreme indifference to the value of human life. She was aware that of the risk that the baby that she abandoned on the ground without heat at about 18 degrees Fahrenheit may cause him to freeze to death over the course of an hour. And the defendant made many statements, and defense counsel is using some of those statements in her motion to dismiss. But the defendant made many statements, very few of which were actually turned out to be true. So on 610C, the doctor testified that the baby was in fact suffering from hypothermia, exactly the way it said in the indictment. Both of those charges, 609C and 610C, require a reckless state of mind. So they don't require that the defendant actually know something, but if she simply abandoned a newborn infant on the ground at approximately 18 degrees and then misled police for an hour, give or take, it's clearly reckless. A rational juror could certainly find that the defendant acted recklessly in a light most favorable to the state. With regard to 614C, defense counsel reads this as the defendant misdirecting the police in order to not give them the location, but in fact the thing that she was trying to hide was the infant. So the infant is the substance that the defense is talking about. So she lied to the police about the location of physical evidence. The physical evidence, regardless of whether the jury believes that she knew that the baby was alive or not, She clearly lied to the police about the location of the physical evidence, whether that be a baby or a fetus. And she did that with a clear purpose to impair its availability in the investigation as well. On 612C, what I understand defense to be arguing is that a rational juror could not conclude that an ambient temperature in the tent was extremely cold. Both officers testified, or I guess that it was not extremely cold at the time that she was misdirecting the police. Both officers testified that the temperature did not change appreciably during their time on scene. That Detective Talley testified that it was approximately 18 degrees Fahrenheit, and that I think they actually both did testify that it may have warmed up or cooled down over the time that they were there, but that it didn't change appreciably. And when they got to the tent at the end of the search, that was the approximate temperature. So a rational juror could certainly conclude that it was extremely cold at the time that the defendant was directing police away from the baby.
What is, with regard to that, what is your response to their argument that there was no statement that the injuries constituted serious bodily injury, unlike the bodily injury that's required in the second-degree assault? What was the testimony that it constituted serious bodily injury,
So,
if any?
so the doctor testified that trying to do this all from memory, Your Honor, sorry, but the doctor testified that the baby was that the hypothermia was life-threatening. The hypothermia was life-threatening at the time that and I mean, I think that the jury could rationally conclude that the hypothermia was caused by the baby being left out in the cold for an hour at 8 degrees Fahrenheit. And so that hypothermia being life-threatening, so it falls into the definition of serious bodily injury. And the doctor testified that not only was the baby in a life-threatening condition during the time at CMC, but even after the baby had been warmed for hours and life-flighted out of CMC to Dartmouth, he was still in a life threat. So if I go to 633, as I understand defense counsel's argument on that, she sought medical assistance, and so she had complied with her duty as a parent. But I guess the problem with that argument is she sought medical assistance for herself, and in fact interfered with the provision of medical assistance to the baby.
Thank you.
Your Honor, I just wanted to say I have the copy of the State v. Chalpin with me, and it's a sufficiency of the evidence case, not a sentencing case. So I don't know if you want a copy or you want the copy.
Is it marked?
Is it marked?
Meaning, does it have your markings on it?
Just has, yeah, it does have one brackets number, one title, title of a section.
Okay. Do you? Well, I mean, I'll take the hard copy of it if you don't care. Otherwise, I'll find it online.
I don't. They're aware.
Just All right, I'll just take this under advisement and we'll be back. Why don't you come back at 25 after? If you have information about the availability of your witness, please communicate that to the clerk while we're on the break, okay?
Yes, Your Honor.
Great, thank you.
All right.
Light most favorable to the state. No rational trier of fact could find guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. All reasonable inferences derived from the evidence are also viewed in the light most favorable to the state when deciding a motion to dismiss. As I hear defendant's arguments with regard to the 2 second-degree assault charges, defense contends that there is no evidence that the defendant was aware of the risk of causing respiratory distress, or hypothermia. I think the jury can find upon the evidence and considering reasonable inferences from the evidence that she was aware of the risk of bodily injury, to include respiratory distress and hypothermia, when you consider all of the facts and circumstances with regard to the case. And again, that is viewing the light in the evidence most favorable to the state. The defendant's arguments that there's no injury, again, with regard to the second-degree assault charges, these charge bodily injury for which there is no statutory definition. Based on the evidence that was presented by the nurse, the doctor, and those on the scene, the court does not find that that's a basis for the motion to dismiss either. On the reckless conduct charge, the question of defendant argues that she could not have consciously disregarded the risk because she didn't know that there was a risk. Again, there's differing testimony on that, but there is, given the testimony of the medical personnel, and that she indicated at some point that but there was at least testimony that at some point she indicated that the baby was crying. The court doesn't accept the argument that taking the evidence in the light most favorable to the state, no rational trier of fact could find that she consciously disregarded the risk. Additionally, with regard to serious bodily injury, given the testimony of the doctor and the nurse regarding the physical condition of the baby when it arrived at the hospital and on the scene, it would that there is a conscious disregard that she I'll just get the language of that she engaged in conduct that placed another in danger of serious bodily injury. The court finds that based on the evidence presented, that charge can go forward also. On the falsifying physical evidence charge, the physical evidence, the defendant argues that the concealing the location of the baby, the location is not physical evidence. But I do read that charge as indicating that the effort was to conceal the location of the baby as the physical evidence, not the physical evidence of the location itself. And so for that reason, the motion to dismiss on that charge is denied as well. And similarly on the endangering charge, again, the question was whether or not, the issue that the defense raises, whether or not she acted knowingly. And again, that is a question for the jury, given that there is some conflicting evidence about that issue, but there's sufficient evidence to allow the state to go forward. So for those reasons, the motion to dismiss these charges is denied. The court does.
May I just ask one question?
Yes.
I think you said that for the second-degree assaults that she was aware of the risk of injury, which is not just caused the injury.
Yes, I'm sorry, that she recklessly caused injury manifesting extreme indifference to the value of human life. I thought I said that you argued that the defendant was not aware of the risk.
Well, for the other charge, I mean. consciously disregarded a risk. Yes, yeah. I guess I was confused if you were saying the risk of bodily injury or you're talking about the mental state, not the risk of bodily injury.
So I took your argument to mean that she, let's see. Sorry, I'm just looking at my notes. So that there was no conscious disregard. I thought I took your argument to suggest that there was no that those charges could not go forward because there was no conscious disregard of the risk under the
Right.
recklessly standard.
No, I understand that. I just,
Okay.
I think there's just the way you said it was that she was aware of the risk of bodily injury. Well, she has to be found to have caused the bodily injury.
Yes, but your argument was as to the conscious disregard.
Yeah,
That she
I
acted
argued the
recklessly.
causation too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So as I said, I do find that there is sufficient evidence to allow the state to go forward with regard to the issue of no conscious disregard of the risk.
I understand. I just want to make sure I was clear that I'm not saying that the indictment is worded the risk of bodily injury. Because
Okay.
that's not
No,
what it
no.
is. She has to have caused the bodily injury.
Yes.
Okay.
The conscious disregard of the risk. Okay. So having said that, it's my understanding, Counsel, why don't you approach regarding Romeo? Bring the jury.
All rise.
Please be seated. All right, ladies and gentlemen, as you know, the state has rested. That means they've concluded the testimony that they are going to enter in their case in chief. Sometimes testimony moves more quickly than we anticipate, and that happened today. So what we're going to do is this. I'm going to release you for the day. We're going to come back on Wednesday morning, at which time it will be the defense has no obligation to present any evidence whatsoever, but they may do so if they wish to do so. After the defense, if they put in any testimony, after that it would be time for closing arguments and final instructions and then jury deliberations. So we anticipate that this case may, we may get through that on Wednesday, or it may go into Thursday, but we do anticipate, I mean, you know, we never know how long deliberations are going to last, so we always want you to plan accordingly. But we do anticipate that the testimony will likely conclude on Wednesday. We may get to closings or instructions, but it can also go into Thursday, and then deliberations would last as long as the deliberating jurors need. So I'm going to release you today. I'm going to remind you once again not to talk about the case, not with each other or with anybody else. Make sure that you are avoiding any media coverage of the case, whether that's online, newspapers, television. Please make sure that you are avoiding any coverage of this case, should there be any. Don't do any independent research. Don't look up any names on social media or anywhere else. You have to decide this case based exclusively on the evidence that's presented at trial and the law as the court will give it to you in the court's instructions. All right. So thank you. I hope you all enjoy the rest of your afternoon. I'm sorry it was a little bit of an unanticipated break that we're having this afternoon. So thank you for your attention today. Ladies and gentlemen, we will see you Wednesday morning at 9:45. Wednesday morning, 9:45. Thank you, everybody.
All rise.
All right, so you want to approach for a minute regarding remedies. All right, everyone, we will resume testimony on Wednesday morning. And if you communicate with the clerk, she may have that draft inspection for you. By tomorrow.
Okay.
Okay. All right. All rise.